Hello, welcome to this After Effects tutorial. Today I am going to be teaching you how to make a lower third that will look something like this. And it looks quite simple, it looks pretty neat, but there are a few things going on behind the scenes that make it really great. And those things are the essential graphics, and what it basically allows you to do is export these graphics like as a graphics template, and then you can put that straight into Premiere Pro, so that when you're doing your editing and you want a lower third, you bung it straight into Premiere Pro and it gives you these editable fields. Okay, so I can like choose the color that I want. Let's have a green, right, and it'll automatically update. I can change the person's name to some other name, and it will like automatically put it in, and it scales the length of the boxes, right? So if it was longer, then you see here this text box gets longer. Everything scales properly. I don't want to just upload like an hour-long video, so it's going to be split up into sections, and we're going to do it one step at a time so that literally anyone can do this, no matter how experienced you are in After Effects. Anyway, so let's get straight into making a new composition. I originally made this in 4K and 50 frames a second. That's because currently that's sort of the maximum that Forge can create videos in. The best we can possibly do is make a 4K 50 frames a second video, and so if we so happen to make a 4K 50 frames a second video, I want to be able to have the graphics that will work and not have to scale or the frame rate be odd. It's a lot easier to go backwards. I can this can still work in 1080 25, or it can be scaled down, but it's very difficult to scale it up. So let's call this Forge lower third. Great, so we've got our project, we've got our composition, timeline, and the essential graphics package is already here. So let's get that on straight away. Let's create this and make it called lower third template. Nice. It's always good to have your end goal in mind. So I'm going to be using the essential graphics from the start and making sure that everything I create is tailored towards the essential graphics. You can do it at the end. You can like create your whole animation and make it work, and then at the end just like move it over to essential graphics, but it can sometimes take a little bit more work. So I'm going to make sure that it's there from the start. And the very first thing we're going to do is create a new null object, and I'm going to call it control. Okay? This is going to be our controls, where everything is going to sit. All of the mathematics is going to be in here, and that's how it's going to work. We are then going to create a text box. So let's focus on the name first. Double click and it'll create a shape like that. Okay, great. And let's rename this to name box. So what we're now going to do is I'm just going to change the colors of these. So let's make this one the control layer sandstone. Yeah, why not? And then this one is going to be red. Okay, just so it stands out a bit more on the actual timeline. Okay, so we've got a name box. And what we're going to do, I'm going to start off straight away and make this name box scalable depending on how long the text is, right? Step one, no matter what we type in here as the text, we want this to like change in size and make sure that it fits in the text. Okay, so let's add in some text. Click off there, click on the text, and just click anywhere and type in some placeholder, right? Just placeholder text. You don't need to worry too much about the design, but that's sort of what I'm going to go for. So it's let's go for 85 on the what's it called? Scale, horizontal scale, and then we're going to have 50 on the tracking. And now what we want to do is we want this box to change depending on the size of the text, and let's name that text. Okay. So text layer, name box. Great. What we're now going to do is we're going to go into this name box. So we're going to go into the rectangle path, and we're going to alt click on the size. We're going to go straight into, oh, that didn't even alt click. Brilliant. Alt click on the size. There we go. And we're going to go straight into doing some expressions, we are going to do the following. X equals comp, and then the name of our composition, which is currently Forge lower third, but that is probably going to change, but we'll get to that later, but I'll just show you it working for now. Dot layer and text. Great. And then we want dot source rect at time, open close brackets. Okay, so source rect at time is going to that is the command that we use to figure out the size of actually let's turn that off, the size of this, right, the text layer. Okay, so source rect at time, so that will just figure out the size, and what we want specifically is dot width. Okay, so that's just the width, like left to right size of that layer, and then we're going to add on a little bit more, so we're going to do plus 100. Okay, and then end it with a semicolon. Okay, so what that's doing is it's looking at the size of this text, it's going from left to right and figuring out what that size is, and it's adding on a little bit more. And then what we're going to do is we'll just test it out by doing, so what the size is looking for is it wants two values. It wants a y and an x value. So if we just put in x and let's say 200, that should work, and it hasn't because I've probably forgotten a bracket at some point. What does it say? Forge lower third is missing. It's because I've missed out the spaces. So this is really this is the first learning curve, is you have to make sure that all of your spelling is correct down to the capitals and the spaces. That's why I said earlier you need to make sure that you spell everything right. So already I've spelled something wrong, so that's not good, but that's fine. I just need to remember that. So but anyway, there we go. That's the point I was making. And now if we start to type in something different, so there we go. You can see that as we type, the size of this box is changing. So person's name, and it changed size, but it seems to be scaling weird. So if I went and moved this text, this box over there, that looks about right. But then I went to type in this text box. As I make it longer, it's completely gone wrong. So it's sort of scaling from the center, right? The anchor point is in the center, and it's going either way. Now we're going to go to position down here. We're going to alt click on position, and straight away that comes up with this thing that says content rectangle 1 dot content rectangle path 1 dot position. Great. Now we want to vary the position depending on the size. So if we change this word position to size, that's now going to look at this thing above, right? That's already got an expression in, so that's like we've cheated. We've just copied that expression, okay? So if we do that, it's kind of like moved it, but depending on the thing, like we can put that there. And now if we try and type, the whole thing's shifting along. So it's sort of now moving depending on what the word is, right? That's good. It's now like it's moving on its own accord, right? But it's not quite moving right. So if we change this to size divided by 2, okay, now what happens is if we type in here, the box is now sort of fixed in position. Okay, so we can then go and like move that box, put it where we want it to be, and now when we type in here, let's delete that, hello world, yes, everything seems to be working right now. So as we type in, the box is getting longer, and it's not moving around, it's not doing anything silly. That is exactly as we want it to do. But there's one more thing that we can do, and what that's going to be is, if we imagine that no one typed anything in, right, and it doesn't say anything, or if we just had a short name like Tom, that text box is really, really small. We want it to start slightly bigger than that and then grow if it needs to. But as a standard, it should be a certain size to begin with, no matter how small the person's name is. So to do that, instead of this just ending with x200, we're going to put in an if statement. So we're going to say if, and then open brackets, x is less than or equal to, let's say, 900, then we'll open some curly brackets. We'll put in a little square bracket, and we will say 900 and 200. Close that square bracket, close the curly bracket. Else, open some curly brackets, x 200, close them, end with a semicolon. Boom. Okay? So now we've got a standard size which is like 900 by 200. So 200 up, 900 across. And if we type in the text box, at the moment it's not going to get any longer. Okay? So we can do A, B, C, hasn't got any longer, D, E, and now it starts to get longer, right? So that's exactly what we want. We want it to start at a standard length there, so it's got some gap, and then it will get longer when we need it to. Great. That is really good. And then the last thing to do is move both of these things into the position that we want them. So we will select both of them at the same time. We will move them down here. We will check the title action safe lines, and so I'm going to put them here. Okay? So these are just the like safe area that you can use so that no matter what size screen people have, they'll still be able to see the text. I tend to use this top line and this line here. Okay, so it's sort of this sort of size. Yep, so I make sure that it's on there. Actually, what I'm going to do is, because I know that I'm going to do a subtitle at some point, so I'm going to go back on that action safe. I'm going to select both of these layers again, and I'm going to move them up a little bit. Okay, because I think the subtitle is going to be here, so we want that to be above this line. So that's probably about right now. But anyway, that is pretty much everything for this episode. That is how to make some text change the size of a text box, and so it all scales together. So thank you very much for watching. Join me in the next one where I'm going to continue to build this lower third.